Okay, once again, a very warm good morning to all of you, dear students. Welcome to this demo lecture series of the new batch that we are starting, that is the 5th December batch. Today, as you all, I believe, have been informed, I'll be engaging the introductory class on world history. Before I actually start with the discussion of today's subject, I'll just briefly first introduce myself to all of you. My name is JAWWAD KAZI, and I will be engaging world history and international relations for your batch over the course of next 1 year or so. I'm a senior faculty with the Unique Academy for the last 8 years now. Before that, I've worked as probationary officer with State Bank of India and also as auditor with CAG. I've studied MBA and postgraduate diploma in mass media, but teaching was my passion. So that's how I landed up in teaching for civil services examination. I believe already you have attended some demo lectures and you have fair bit of idea regarding the structure, syllabus, the process of civil services examination. Am I right? So I don't think I need to go into the details of that. I will rather jump into and focus on the specific subject that I will be engaging for you. And of course, as I share the insights regarding world history, I'll also tell you a few things regarding what you need to bear in your mind when it comes to overall civil services ka preparation. Okay. So allow me to share my slide with all of you so that it becomes easier for us to communicate. Okay, so in today's session, guys, I will be discussing the syllabus of world history and I will be exfoliating it completely so that you have a bird's eye view regarding what are the topics that you are supposed to prepare in this subject. UPSC has given us a fairly well-defined syllabus, but it does not explicitly tell us all the topics that should be prepared by the aspirant. Some points in the syllabus behold within themselves many topics. So the syllabus given for world history is just a one-sentence syllabus. But when we open that up, there are a good 15 topics that we are supposed to prepare in world history. So today I will give you an overview regarding those topics. Now, there's a very good book. I would suggest that you all should read that book. It's really very effective. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Have you heard of that book? How many of you have read it? What if you have heard it at least? Have you read it? Great. So in this book, Stephen Covey, the author, gives us 7 habits of successful people. And in that, the second habit is begin with the end in mind. Whenever we start a task, ab initio, shuruaat mein hi, we must have complete clarity regarding what we are supposed to achieve there. If we don't have clarity, then we tend to get swayed. Okay, we tend to digress. So that's why we must have clarity about it. So as you are starting this preparation for civil services in a formal manner, initial level par hi aapko complete clarity honi chahiye ki what we are supposed to do in the course of our preparation. And we will do it as we go along. That is a time span of a year or more. But initial level par hi, we must have clarity regarding that. So therefore, in this first lecture, I will be telling you about the entire syllabus of world history that we are supposed to prepare so that you have that clarity regarding what are we going to do as far as this subject is concerned. Then I will share some intricacies regarding preparing for world history. Now, every subject, guys, in your civil services ka preparation will have its own unique approach. Okay. International relations will have its own approach. Modern Indian history will have its own approach. Geography will have its own approach. And we need to understand what is that approach? What is that intricacy? Expectations across different subjects are slightly different. So that is what I'll be sharing next with you, the intricacy regarding preparing world history. What sort of approach you need to have when you study this subject. Then we will see the sources that you are going to prepare for this particular subject. We shall see the questions and the trend of questions in mains world history. Then I will share with you what I call as the 9C framework for approaching any topic, not just in world history, but any topic in history. It might be modern India, ancient, medieval also. This framework or template will give you a standard pattern in which you can approach any historical topic. We will have to do a lot of tasks over the course of next year or so. And we cannot start every task completely fresh without having any clarity about how we are going to go about it. Having ready-made templates in your mind, template, Hindi Marathi mein jisko hum kahenge na tarika paddhat. Having that template helps you to save time. It tells you what should be your priority, what you should be looking for. So this is a template that I have designed for preparing any topic in history. Okay. Then after that, we will start the first topic today itself, which will be Industrial Revolution. So this is how my lecture for today is going to go. And if you have noticed, this is beginning with the end in mind also for this lecture. What are we going to do in this lecture? We have complete clarity of that now, and then we can go ahead. Okay. Chaliye, aage badhte hain. Guys, let us see what is the syllabus that UPSC has given us for this subject. And I want all of you to read along with me. My classes invariably will insist for this. I'll have some content on the screen, and very often, maybe like school days, you'll have to read it out loud with me. It really works, guys. When we read it out loud, those things are imbibed in a much better way. You are more participative and attentive in the class. And my classes are typically two-way classes. It's not going to be a one-way monologue. A lot of questions, a lot of inputs from your side also. That's how things will go on. Okay. Are you ready for this? Okay. So I'm reading the syllabus and I want you to read it with me. History of the world will include events from 18th century, such as Industrial Revolution, World Wars, redrawal of national boundaries, colonization, decolonization, political philosophies like communism, capitalism, socialism, their forms and effect on the society. This is a one single sentence syllabus that UPSC has given in mains GS paper 1. Now I'm sure by now you know that world history is part of mains only. It's not there in prelims. Prelims mein kya aata hai aapka? Ancient, medieval, art and culture, modern India, not world history. World history is exclusively for mains. Okay. If we read the syllabus carefully, you will see there are some specific topics that have been mentioned by UPSC. Topics like Industrial Revolution, directly mentioned. World Wars, clearly mentioned. Redrawal of national boundaries, clearly mentioned. Colonization and decolonization. So these are 6 odd topics जो UPSC ने खुद specifically mention कर रखी है. ठीक है? But if you see the previous phrase, it says history of the world will include events from 18th century such as. So these are like examples. Okay, this is not the exhaustive list as such. Okay, so there are some events which are not mentioned in the syllabus, but they are equally significant and potentially UPSC can and has asked questions on them. Okay, so what will be these topics we will see in due course. But what I want you to understand here is that this one sentence ka syllabus is not an exhaustive list. Okay. Now, syllabus can be divided, broadly speaking, in 2 halves. One is events, and second is philosophies, political philosophies. Events and philosophies. Events, Hindi Marathi में हम जिसको बोलेंगे ना, कोई काहीतरी घडामोड आहे. Something has taken place. That is event. Philosophy is a thought. A thought that shapes people's approach towards their life. So thought and events need to be approached in a slightly different manner. How exactly, we will see that in due course. But I want you to understand at this stage that syllabus has both the aspects, events as well as some philosophies. Got this idea, guys? So this is the one sentence syllabus that UPSC has given us. Okay. Now let us get down to the number of topics, the different topics that can be connected with this syllabus. On this slide, over the course of next 10 odd minutes, I am going to give you a taste of the different topics that we are going to prepare. You know, if you go to any prominent sweet meat shop, mithai ki dukaan mein agar hum jate hain, you want to buy some sweet, you know, that mithai wala halwai will give you taste of different mithais so that you can take a call which one you can pick. Okay. So now over the course of next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a brief taste of each of these topics. Please note, every topic I'm going to cover in one full lecture. So everything in detail is going to come in due course. आज यहाँ पर मैं बस आपको मैं इंट्रोडक्शन दे रहा हूँ टॉपिक्स का, ठीक है? So that you have a feel कि हमको क्या क्या पढ़ना है. Getting my point? ठीक है? चलिए, let's start with what all will be included in our syllabus. The first topic that we will prepare will be the industrial revolution. हिंदी मराठी में जिसको हम कहेंगे औद्योगिक क्रांति. रेवोल्यूशन ये वर्ड आपने हमेशा सुना है, यूज किया है. What is meant by revolution? A revolution is a sudden and massive change in something. That is a revolution. Industrial revolution क्या था? Industrial revolution दोस्तों mid 18th century के बाद में human beings designed or developed a new way of producing goods. Human beings की हिस्ट्री अगर हम over the last several millennia देखते हैं, तो जो भी goods हमको चाहिए थे वो हम हाथ से, human labor से produce करते थे. सही है ना? You go back to Stone Age times, we were producing stone tools, और एक एक tool जो है वो हाथ से prepare किया जाता था. You all agree with this? And that largely continues right down to mid 18th century. Mid 18th century में कुछ चीजें बदलने लग जाती हैं. And slowly, steadily, we design or develop a new system of production. एक नवीन प्रणाली. This new system of production brought together raw material, human labor, machines, power, and capital. ठीक है? क्या क्या चीज कही मैंने? Raw material, human labor, machines, power, and capital. All of this in one place. And using these systems, we started to mass produce goods in factories. पहले जब शर्ट बनता था, तो शर्ट जो है वो स्टार्ट टू एंड एक ही जगह के ऊपर में नहीं बना करता था. वीवर अलग था, ठीक है? उससे पहले कॉटन में से सीड्स निकाल करके टेक्सटाइल बनाना, उसका काम अलग था. स्टिच करने वाले का काम अलग था, राइट? Everything was happening at different levels at done by human labor only. Now we have factories where goods could be produced on a mass scale in less time using machines and power. This was the sudden transformation in producing goods. This transformation is called as the Industrial Revolution. You got this idea, guys? This Industrial Revolution was not only a change in technology, certainly it was, but it had an impact on all aspects of human life. Industrial Revolution ने समाज को बदल के रख दिया. सोसाइटी में दो क्लासेस बन गई, फैक्ट्री ओनर्स या कैपिटलिस्ट्स एंड वर्कर्स. The factory owners went on becoming richer in the process, whereas the workers were brutally exploited by these factory owners. the gap between the haves and have-nots started to increase. So revolution कहाँ आया है? Technology, system of production में आया है. लेकिन impact कहाँ हो रहा है? Society के ऊपर में हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है? ठीक है? It changed the approach of countries. Those countries which became industrialized, they now needed two things: steady supply of raw material for their factories. फैक्ट्री 24 घंटे चल सकती थी, उसको कांस्टेंट भूख थी फॉर रॉ मटेरियल. टेक्सटाइल की फैक्ट्री जो मैनचेस्टर में चल रही है, उसको कॉटन चाहिए, और कॉटन ब्रिटेन में नहीं बनता है. ठीक है, वो तो अमेरिकाज में होगा, इंडिया में होगा, या अफ्रीका के कुछ पार्ट्स में होगा. सो ब्रिटेन के लिए जरूरी हो गया कि वो इन दूर दराज के इलाकों में जाकर के स्टेडी सप्लाई ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल इंश्योर करे. And from this starts colonialism, imperialism, etc. Okay. Industrial revolution gave Britain the power to go and hold these distant areas. You might have wondered in your school times that how did such a small country come to occupy such a big subcontinent? कितना छोटा सा इंग्लैंड पता है आपको? अगर इंग्लैंड प्रॉपर देख लेंगे तो हरियाणा के साइज का है. ठीक है, and it was occupying the entire Indian subcontinent. Forget about other areas in the world. Okay. How did they manage that? Because industrial revolution gave them that technology for dominating such distant lands. Modern ships, guns, communication systems, production की efficiency, ये सारी चीजें industrial revolution से आई. ठीक है? So with the countries that saw industrial revolutions, they were transformed in the process. क्रांति दिख रही है यहाँ पर में भी आपको? ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन दिख रहा है? ठीक है, जो चीज सोसाइटी में हुई, पॉलिटी में हुई, वही चीज कल्चरली भी इंपैक्ट करने लगेगी. इन इंडिया वी विल सी पीपल विल स्टार्ट टू वेयर सूट्स ओवर धोती एंड कुर्ता. If you see old movies, you will see, you know, people wearing a coat over dhoti and kurta. This taste was consciously changed by the imperial masters so that their products could be sold here in India. Lord Macaulay कहता है ना, we want to produce Indians who are Indians in blood but British in taste. So cultural change आया इसकी वजह से. You all agree with this? ठीक है, सो ऐसे बहुत fascinating changes industrial revolution ने लाए across the world. We are going to understand how this revolution came about and what sort of impact it had on the whole world. Industrial revolution के exploitation से ही new ideas or philosophies came to the world. Industrial revolution made the poor people even poorer. Their lives were wretched. And from this was born the idea of socialism and communism. Socialism and communism basically demand economic egalitarianism, economic equality, आर्थिक समानता असली पहचान. Where are these ideas coming from? They are coming from the impact of industrial revolution. One thing always lead to the next in human society. So we'll understand this revolution holistically. After this, I will take you to America. Figuratively, of course, not really. And in America, we will see how and why the 13 British colonies rebelled against their motherland, Britain. 13 colonies थी ब्रिटेन की नॉर्थ अमेरिका में. ये 13 स्ट्राइप्स आपने देखे होंगे यूएस के फ्लैग के ऊपर में होते हैं. So originally they denoted those 13 colonies. These 13 colonies were living very happily under the British rule. They were proud that they are subjects of the British crown. But again, mid-18th century aate aate, some things start to change. Mid-18th century ka phase jo hai na, that's very seminal in history of the world. These 13 colonies start to feel that we are being exploited for the interest of Britain. And we don't want to be part of such a system. So they give the call of no taxation without a representation. Unless and until Britain gives us political representation in British Parliament, why should we pay the tax? Based on new political ideas, these 13 colonies finally rebel against Britain and snatch away their independence. This was the first time in the history of the world that some colonies had successfully rebelled against their motherland. कौन थे ना ये 13 colonies वाले लोग? Originally British people only, who had been established there in that distant land. But now after 1, 2, 3 generations, these same people were saying, we don't want to be British. We have our own separate national identity. We are Americans. And not only do they rebel, they also create a new political system. A new system based on the ideas of democracy, liberty, equality, fraternity, so on and so forth. They give their people a new constitution, Samvidhanic rule. These developments taking place across the Atlantic became a guiding light for rest of the world ever since. All the subsequent revolutions and political changes that have happened in the world can somewhere be traced back to the American Revolution. So we will understand why this revolution took place and why it is such a significant event in the history of the world. Then I'll take you to Paris after that. And in Paris, we will see why the common citizens of Paris were coming out on the streets against their own absolute monarch, Louis XVI. What animated these people? कौन से वो विचार थे, ideas थे, जिसको लेकर के पेरिस के लोग खून से एक क्रांति लिखना चाह रहे थे? Absolute monarch is a concept that we'll see in detail, but let me briefly tell you about this. Absolute monarch, मराठी में जिसको हम कहेंगे एकाधिकारशाही. Absolute monarch was a ruler in whose hands all the powers were concentrated. There was no challenge to his power. There was no constitution. There was no independent judiciary. There was no media, no institutions. It all came down to Shivagamini ka dialogue, Mera vachan hi hai shasan. That is the power of absolute monarch. My word is the law. Ami mannar to shabd. Okay. Itne powerful ruler ke khilaf mein common people, common janta, they rise up, animated by the ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity, and have their absolute monarch's head chopped off and inaugurate a new phase in the history of France. That development in France is going to spread like a wildfire across Europe. All of Europe will start to transform based on these ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity, nationalism, nation state, so on and so forth. क्यों पढ़ना चाहिए दोस्तों हमको ये सब चीजें? आज जिस डे और एज में हम रह रहे हैं ना, जो वैल्यूज में हम बिलीव करते हैं, जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस आज हमको चला रही हैं, वो सारी बिल्ट है बेस्ड ऑन दीज इवेंट्स. से एक मैं सिंपल मिसाल देता हूं आपको. I see a lot of you wear jeans and t-shirts, boys and girls alike. If somebody came and told you that, no, why are you wearing jeans and t-shirts? This is a Western dress. You're supposed to wear a dhoti kurta or, kurta pajama, something like that. You're not supposed to wear these dresses. What will be your natural reaction? You'll obviously tell the person to mind his own business. You have nothing to tell me. I am free to live my life the way I want to. You are not supposed to dictate these terms. Forget somebody else. Even if somebody from your family said that, you would have a similar kind of a reply. Maybe more polite, but a similar kind of a reply. Is it right? This is the idea of liberty. Means every person has the right to live his or her life the way he or she wants it. As long as you are not affecting other people's rights, you are free to live your life the way you want to. No authority can tell you what you are supposed to do. You all agree with this? Where has this idea come from today? It has come from the French Revolution. Had it not been for the people of France, had they not laid down their lives and spilled their bloods, this idea would not have become mainstream. उससे पहले की दुनिया में बहुत सारी authorities थी, political, religious authorities, who used to dictate terms to others. You have to behave like this, and people had to submit. People of France are challenging those institutions based on these new ideas. Are you getting this point? So when we are able to enjoy these freedoms, we have to understand where they originate, how they came about in the world. The French Revolution is a very seminal event in that. The French Revolution gave the idea of nationalism to Europe. Rashtravad. Suna hai aapne thought? What is meant by nationalism? Rashtravad suna hoga na aapne? What is nationalism? Anyone? Excellent. Nationalism is feeling of oneness, and he gave the proper definition based on some common characteristics. The people of France said that we are French speaking people. हम French भाषिक लोग हैं. और इसके basis पे we are one. We have that feeling of oneness. Before French Revolution in Europe, you had empires. Okay. And these empires included many different types of people. Empires में क्या होता था? Emperor को जहां जैसे मौका मिला, वो अपनी armies भेज करके territory increase करता था. Consequently, in these massive empires, Austrian Empire, Russian Empire, Ottoman Empire, many different types of people lived. Their languages were different, their ethnicities were different, their cultures were different, their religions were different, different types of people. French Revolution gave the idea that based on language, we are one people, and therefore we have to have a state for ourselves based on this French nationalism. Got this point? This animated other people in Europe later. People said if French people, French भाषिक लोग अगर nationalism रख सकते हैं, अपना nation state बना सकते हैं, तो Polish speaking लोग भी कर सकते हैं. हो सकता है कि नहीं हो सकता है? ठीक है. Hungarians कर सकते हैं. Ottoman Empire में इतनी सारी nationalities थी, वो भी कर सकते हैं. So we will see empires will start to break up and nation states will be born in their place. One revolution and see so many changes it is causing in later day. We Indians also said the same thing. We said that we are Indians, we have our own Rashtravad, our nationalism. Why should the British rule over us? We want our own nation state, and that's why we fought for our independence. Where is the idea coming from? Nationalism, nation state का? It is coming from the French Revolution. आज UNO में 193 members हैं. You know about UNO, right? ये 193 members कौन हैं? These 193 members are nation states. Nation state has become the fundamental unit of international relations. And where has that idea got sanctity from? French Revolution. Got this point? So the values that we believe in, the culture that we have, the institutions under which we live, those have been shaped by these revolutions. And that's why we need to understand. Got this point? Okay. After French Revolution, we are going to meet a very charismatic personality. Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte starts as an ordinary officer in the French army during the French Revolution itself, and goes on to become the Emperor of France within a few years, from an ordinary officer to the Emperor of France. Further, he goes on to dominate all of Europe. He defeats every single major power in Europe and spreads his empire across the length and breadth of continental Europe. Britain is the only exception which did not come under Napoleon's sway. Rest of Europe was directly or indirectly under Napoleon's sway. So how did Napoleon come on the back of French Revolution and become the Emperor of France? We'll try to understand that. वो फ्रेंच क्रांति, फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन जो डेमोक्रेसी रिपब्लिक के लिए लड़ रहा था, उसके एंड में we see a anti-climax. What is that anti-climax? We have an emperor like Napoleon there. उल्टा हो गया ना? डेमोक्रेसी रिपब्लिक की लड़ाई थी, लेकिन एंड में क्या आ गया? एम्परर आ गया. So ये कैसे हुआ ये हम देखेंगे. नेपोलियन ने क्या contribution किया, that also we'll try to understand. I'll tell you many things, but just to give you one example. We all have different types of codes in our country today. You might have heard about Indian Penal Code, Criminal Procedure Code. We have 4 new labor codes brought by the government. ये codification का जो system है ना, ये Napoleon का brainchild है. Okay? Napoleon brought about many administrative reforms which have guided the world ever since. So we'll try to understand as an emperor what kind of role Napoleon has played. But after a decade and a half, Napoleon was finally defeated by rest of Europe. Everybody else combined and created a Mahavikas Aghadi. And this Mahavikas Aghadi was led by the Minister of Austria, Metternich. And together they defeat Napoleon. एक अकेले की किसी की बस की बात नहीं थी. All of Europe versus one man, Napoleon. And finally they managed to defeat him at the Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon को हराने के बाद में they call a meeting which is called as Congress of Vienna. This Congress of Vienna is also a very landmark development in history of Europe. Congress of Vienna tried to turn back the hands of the clock. All the new ideas that the French Revolution had brought, Congress of Vienna tries to push that back and bring the old system again. Okay, so how they try to do it and why they eventually fail, we will see in this lecture. Then we will talk about birth of 2 very important nation states of Europe, that is Italy and Germany. Italians and German speaking people. Please remember guys, nationalism in Europe was defined generally on 2 bases. One was language and second was ethnicity. Vansh, Marathi mein isko hum kehte. Language and ethnicity. Italian speaking people were spread across 7 kingdoms. And out of these 7, except one, all were ruled by foreigners, not Italians. So Italian speaking people got inspired by the French people, by their nationalism and their nation state. And they felt that we should also have a nation state for ourselves. Much like we Indians felt a little later that we should have our own nation state. So Italians fought against their foreign rulers and fused together these 7 kingdoms to give birth to modern Italy. Germany similarly was divided earlier into 300 states. Napoleon fused them and made 39 out of 300. These 39 then ultimately created one single German nation state. ये सब क्यों हो रहा है दोस्तों? ये सब हो रहा है because of ideas that have come out of French Revolution. और जो Italians और Germans करेंगे, बाद में फिर Balkan states करेंगे, बाद में पोलैंड ट्राई करेगा, बाद में हंगरी ट्राई करेगा और पूरे यूरोप का नक्शा जो है वो बदल के रह जाएगा. एम्पायर्स खत्म हो जाएंगे और उनकी जगह पर में कई सारे छोटे छोटे नेशन स्टेट्स पैदा होंगे. ये सारा यूरोप का हिस्ट्री है. याद रखिएगा दोस्तों, ड्यूरिंग माय डिस्कशन ऑन वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री आई विल बी रिमाइंडिंग यू ओवर एंड ओवर अगेन दैट वी ह्यूमन बीइंग्स, we are always animated by ideas which are okay, whatever we have created in the physical world, that has been first created as an idea in our minds. And in every age we have certain ideas which dominate our thought process. प्रत्येक युगासाठी वेगवेगळे आपले विचार असतात. In this phase, in this period, we are going to see the ideas of democracy, the ideas of nationalism, nation state, and individual rights. आज के आइडियाज क्या हैं? आज के आइडियाज देखिए, ह्यूमन राइट्स है कि नहीं आइडिया है? ठीक है. We have democracy as a major idea in this day and age also. Globalization, we have that as an idea, right? So in every day and age, certain ideas dominate. So world history is all about flow of ideas. After seeing birth of Italy and Germany, we'll again go back to USA. USA was born as an independent country in 1783. लंबी लड़ाई लड़ी जिसके आखिर में किंग जॉर्ज द थर्ड ने अमेरिकन से कह दिया जा सिमरन जी ले अपनी जिंदगी, ठीक है, टेक योर इंडिपेंडेंस. They create their own constitution and live a life happily ever after, but with some tensions. Northern and southern states of America had different types of geographies. Okay? And because the geographies were different, their economies and cultures were different. Northern states, smaller in size, therefore non-agricultural. No agriculture, therefore manufacturing industry and trade was their dominant economy. Southern states, large size, more agricultural land, plantation crops, and therefore they have a different type of economy. Geography alag, isliye economy alag, isliye culture alag. And because all of these differences, their respective interests were different. नॉर्दर्न स्टेट्स जो इंडस्ट्रियलाइज थे, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग थे, उनके इंटरेस्ट कुछ और थे. सदर्न स्टेट्स जो एग्रारियन थे, उनके इंटरेस्ट कुछ और थे. नाउ बेस्ड ऑन दिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, these two states could not come to terms with each other, and finally southern states decided that we want a divorce. We don't want to be part of this United States of America. This was a biggest trial of USA thus far. Abraham Lincoln, the great US president, was in the office at that point. What was at stake was not just the survival of a country. What was at stake was the survival of some ideas. Ideas of democracy, idea of republic, idea of individual freedoms. अगर यूएसए बिखर जाता तो पूरी दुनिया में क्रिटिसिज्म आइडियाज पर होता. यूरोप जो अभी भी राजशाही में है, मोनार्कीज में है, would have said, see, democracy is a failure, the republic is a failure, these ideas do not succeed, you need a strong monarch to keep things intact. Fortunately, Abraham Lincoln gave his all to ensure the survival of USA, and with its survival, these ideas survived in the world. Okay? That is why the history of the world is increasingly the history of going towards republics, democracies, and liberal rights. Getting this point? So we'll understand how and why this civil war was fought and what were its outcomes. Then we will see World War I. यहाँ पर आके American Civil War पर आकर के our syllabus is like midway. This is the first half, और यहाँ पर मैं आप एक dividing line बना सकते हैं. We enter into the second half in the 20th century. Because of all the developments that we will discuss over here, industrial revolution से लेके सारी चीजें, the world will get divided into two armed camps in the 20th century. And these two armed camps will fight it out in World War I. The greatest disastrous war that humanity had seen till that point of time. This war was fought to settle some issues, but it ended up creating many new issues. What exactly happened in this war, why it was fought, and what were its consequences, we'll see in this discussion. Then we will talk about the prominent political philosophies that the syllabus expects us to understand. Ideas of capitalism, socialism, and communism. We'll understand all of these thoughts. Based on these ideas, that is socialism and communism. सोशलिज्म कहां से आया, मैंने आपको बताया, इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन की जो इनइक्वालिटी थी, एक्सप्लॉयटेशन था, उसके आंसर के तौर पर 19th सेंचुरी में सोशलिज्म जो है वो डेवलप होता है. और उसी सोशलिस्ट थॉट में आता है सबसे बड़ा थिंकर कार्ल मार्क्स. We'll meet Karl Marx over here. The most fascinating intellectual. He has been regarded as the biggest philosopher of the last millennium. Mahatma Gandhi has been voted as the greatest leader of the last century. Okay. And Karl Marx as the greatest philosopher of the last millennium. This man has made fundamental contribution across different disciplines that we study today. आप पॉलिटिकल साइंस उठा लो, कार्ल मार्क्स का थॉट जो है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट थॉट है, उसके बगैर आप पॉल साइंस कंप्लीट नहीं कर सकते. सोशियोलॉजी भी अगर आप सिलेबस देखेंगे, ही इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंकर इन सोशियोलॉजी. हिस्ट्री की अगर आप बात करेंगे, एक पूरा स्कूल है हिस्ट्री में विच इज कॉल्ड एज मार्क्सिस्ट स्कूल, मार्क्सिस्ट स्कूल ऑफ हिस्ट्री. एंथ्रोपोलॉजी देखिए, अगेन देयर कार्ल मार्क्स का रेफरेंस वहां पर में भी आता है. किसी एक सब्जेक्ट में कोई इंसान बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन कर रहे हैं, इट्स अ बिग डील. हियर इज अ मैन who has made seminal contribution, chota mota nahi, seminal contribution across multiple humanities. ठीक है? So what has Karl Marx said? What is his analysis? What is his prophecy? ये सारी चीजें हम यहाँ पर में पढ़ी. And based on his ideas, based on his prophecies, there will be a revolution in Russia under the leadership of Lenin. We will understand why of all places this revolution, communist revolution, took place in Russia. And how did Lenin create a new nation state, that is USSR, and what impact it had on the rest of human history. This is a very important topic because USSR जो है वो right up to 1991 के international politics पर impact करता रहे. और उसके बाद में भी उसके effects हमको देखने को मिलते हैं. So we'll understand this revolution. Then we'll come to the interwar period between the two world wars. And here there will be some smaller topics that we'll have to understand. The first will be the birth or creation of League of Nations, its successes and failures. At the end of World War I, human beings realized that we need to have some neutral third umpire to prevent conflicts. No, basically we human beings, हम एक खूंखार species है. Okay? Throughout human history, we have been fighting wars. But 20th century is different. Because of industrial revolution, our capacity for destruction has been amplified manifold. इससे पहले भी जंगें हुई हैं, लेकिन उसका destruction limited था. 20th century World War I जो पहला बड़ा war हुआ है, it showed or it demonstrated practically how destructive we have become. 6 million people killed or wounded in that war. It's a big number. 6 million people. Huge number, no? Okay. So we need a third umpire to prevent such future conflicts. इसी से एक international organization बनती है, League of Nations. But this organization turned out to be a failure. It was a dud. Why did it fail? Is what we will understand over here. Then we will see the Great Depression of USA. This will be the second major crisis that USA will go through after the Civil War. And this crisis in American economy is going to impact the rest of the world also. World War I के बाद में USA is the major power in the world. And it is helping other European countries to come out of World War I का destruction. It is giving them loan and aid. But when it is itself hit by the depression, then USA also raises its hands. But I can't help Germany anymore. I can't help France anymore. So its impact will be felt across the world, including in India also. We'll understand what was this depression, why it spread, what was its impact, and how it was brought in check or control. Then we will meet two gentlemen, not gentlemen actually, Mussolini and Hitler. Mussolini and Hitler rise to power in post-war Germany and Italy. The fertile conditions that they found in Germany and Italy after World War I gave them the opportunity for the spread of their virulent ideologies. Fascism is the ideology of Mussolini, और उसी का एक थोड़ा सा unique thought है Nazism. Idea is the same with some, nuances. So what were these ideas, and why did German and Italian people support these ideas? We'll try to understand that. And how finally Hitler and to some extent Mussolini will again lead the world to Second World War. All of this we will see in this topic. Then we will meet our neighbors. Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. We'll meet our neighbors, the Chinese people. and understand their recent history. Guys, today we are facing the problem of a belligerent or assertive China. We have a difficult relationship with them. You all know that. But to understand today's China, how it has come to the place it is today, we have to understand the history of last 200 years. Unless we understand those 200 years, we can't understand what Xi Jinping is attempting today. Okay. So in this lecture on Chinese Revolution, this is my most favorite, topic to teach. We'll go back into Chinese history and understand how the Chinese were being exploited by Europeans, how they fought back against them, how there was a civil war in China leading to a communist revolution. And I'll also take you a little bit into subsequent history of China under Mao and Deng Xiaoping, right up to Xi Jinping. These are multiple phases. China that is being exploited by Europeans, China that is fighting the civil war, China under Mao, China under Deng Xiaoping, and China after that. So there is, a continuum in this entire process. Chinese call that period of European exploitation as century of humiliation. आपको पता है last year 2022 में the Chinese Communist Party CCP completed 100 years. 100 वर्ष पूर्ण झाले. At that time, Xi Jinping had referred to that century of humiliation that China had suffered. 100 साल तक उनका exploitation शोषण हो रहा था. Mid 20th century तक. वहां से फिर चाइना का ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन है. माओ का एज, फिर डेंग याओपिंग का एज और फिर सब्सिक्वेंट चाइना. सो ये 3 फेजेस में हमको उसको देखना है. And we'll understand all of that in this particular lecture of Chinese Revolution. Then we will see the topic of World War II. Hitler, Mussolini will finally ensure that the world again fights a major war. We'll see how this war was fought and what were its outcomes. Okay. Post World War II, a new organization is created to succeed League of Nations, UNO. ठीक है, जो आज भी जिंदा है. ठीक है, यूक्रेन के अंदर में कहीं दिखा नहीं. Yes, it has its own, failures, but of course, it still has some measure of success. We'll try to analyze it holistically, its structure, processes, and more importantly, its successes and failures. Then we'll see decolonization and Cold War. Europe, which had been colonizing the rest of the continents, 84% of world's surface area. Kitna? 84% of world's surface area was occupied by 7 European countries. Just 7 European countries. 84% of world's surface area. After World War II, when UN is born, USA is a major superpower. USSR also does not support colonization. We see that the European colonial empires will fold back. Many new nation states will be born, our country being the foremost example of that. We are not just the only one. There are several that were born in this phase. That process is called as decolonization. Then parallelly, we'll also see Cold War. Post World War II, new idea. हर age में ideas अलग. World War II के बाद में क्या ideas हैं? The struggle between idea of capitalism and communism. USA and its allies believe that capitalism is the best politico-economic system for mankind, whereas USSR believes in communism. Based on these differences, the world will be divided into 2 camps, First World and Second World, and both will struggle against each other. दोघांना जास्तीत जास्त कार्यकर्ते आपल्या मंडळामध्ये पाहिजे. 2 different camps, both want to pull as many countries as possible into their camp. That struggle goes on for another almost 5 decades. That is called as Cold War. Okay, new idea. After Cold War, we enter into a new phase, globalization. वो मैं IR में आपको पढ़ाऊंगा. यहाँ पर उसका end हम देखेंगे in the form of fall of communism in East Europe and disintegration of USSR. USSR के जो camp followers हैं, वो सारे ही communism को छोड़ देंगे and they will become modern liberal democracies like the West. And ultimately, USSR itself will disintegrate. So all of this we'll cover in this topic. So these are the topics, guys, that we are expected to prepare for world history. This was just a bird's eye view. We're going to take up each one of these topics in detail in one lecture at least. Got my point here, guys? Yes. Redrawal of national boundaries जो है वो creation of Italy and Germany जो है ना, that is basically expected over there. That is the biggest redrawal of national boundaries that is taking place. One. Second is decolonization that is taking place over here. वो भी redrawal of national boundaries का ही part है. And then along the way we will talk about some smaller nation states that will be created. Say Poland है, for example. Poland will be born. कैसे born हो रहा है Poland? जर्मनी में से कुछ एरिया लिया है, रशियन एम्पायर में से कुछ लिया है, और फिर पोलैंड पैदा हुआ है आफ्टर वर्ल्ड वॉर 1. दैट इज आल्सो रीड्रॉल ऑफ नेशनल बाउंड्री. चेकोस्लोवाकिया बनेगा आउट ऑफ ऑस्ट्रिया हंगरी. तो ये सारी चीजें जो है ना, तो आई मीन इट इज इंटरस्पर्स्ड in all the topics that we'll be discussing. Got the point? But the chief topic is this: birth of Italy and Germany. Got the idea? All right. Now, some intricacies regarding preparing world history. किन चीजों का ध्यान आपको रखना है वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री की तैयारी करते हुए? First and foremost, please remember, guys, that when we say world history, it is actually a misnomer. Okay? ये एक गलत नाम जो है वो उसको दिया गया. We are not studying the whole of world history. Our study is limited only to what? Only to study of modern Europe and its interconnections with the rest of the world. We are not going to study ancient Egypt. We are not going to study Greece. We are not going to study the Roman Empire. Nothing. Only modern Europe. We start at Industrial Revolution, basically. Industrial Revolution is that threshold where world enters into the modern phase. Okay? And then its interconnections. Europe ki connections with rest of the world. Why are we studying America? Because Europe had colonized there. No? Americans fought against Europeans. They were inspired by ideas emerging in Europe. Ideas of democracy, republic, individual freedoms, they are born in Europe. The Americans implement them first. Okay, so they are connected. We are going to study the Chinese Revolution. But then why are we studying the Chinese Revolution? Because Europeans were exploiting them. And the Chinese were animated by idea of communism, which is again born in Europe. So it is connected. Okay, so our focus is modern Europe and its connections with rest of the world. Did you understand this, guys? Okay, ये याद रखना आपको, पूरा वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री नहीं पढ़ना है. ठीक है? Okay. Next and very crucial point is flow of history. Okay. General studies world history में आपसे facts ज़्यादा expected नहीं. Don't get into technicalities and nitty-gritties a lot. What is expected of you is flow of history. Okay. You have to understand how things are changing across different ages. Okay. Now you might wonder that why should we study Europe ka history? We are aiming to become aspirants. We are aiming to become civil services officers for India. फिर world history हमको क्यों पढ़ना चाहिए? Especially modern से ही क्यों पढ़ना चाहिए? The reason behind that is, guys, modern world is shaped on ideas and institutions that Europe has developed. ठीक है? दुनिया की इंटेलेक्चुअल लीडरशिप पहले भारत चाइना के पास में रही है. ओके, यूरोप वाज इन डार्क एजेस, लेकिन ये सब चेंज हो गया 18th सेंचुरी में और यूरोप दुनिया का इंटेलेक्चुअल लीडर बन गया. यूरोप की दी हुई आइडियाज ने दुनिया को शेप किया है आज, इसलिए हमको यूरोप पढ़ना जरूरी है. गॉट द पॉइंट? ऑलवेज अंडरस्टैंड दिस. ओरिजिनलिटी, ओरिजिनल जहां से आइडियाज आए ना वो मैटर करता है. और आपकी पर्सनल लाइफ में सिविल सर्विसेज के प्रिपरेशन में भी इसको याद रखिएगा. ओरिजिनलिटी ऑलवेज आउटशाइंस एवरीथिंग एल्स. क्यों यूरोप को पढ़ना है? क्योंकि ओरिजिनल थॉट्स, ओरिजिनल आइडियाज दिए. जब भारत दे रहा था उस वक्त में हम लीडर थे ना दुनिया में. देयर वाज अ टाइम व्हेन मेनी न्यू इंटेलेक्चुअल करंट्स वर देयर इन इंडिया. फिर हम पीछे हो गए, तो उस फेज के अंदर में वी आर नॉट रेलेवेंट internationally speaking as such that much. Europe becomes important. यूरोप जहां पर में आकर के ठंडा हो जाता है वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 के एंड में, we see the center of gravity will shift towards America because America will become the intellectual leader. That's why America centric world हम उसको कहते हैं. Got the point? So intellectual leadership जिसके पास में होगी, attention focus history में उसके पास में. Then next, analytical framework while studying. Rather than depth into facts, technicalities, we need analysis. Analysis का मतलब क्या होता है? ये word कैसे बना है? Ana plus lysis. Lysis means to break and ana means down. So analysis means breaking down. There is something complex. French Revolution एक complex event हो रहा है, ठीक है? उसको हम analyze करेंगे, मतलब क्या करेंगे? Break down करेंगे कि ये क्यों हो रहा है, कैसे हो रहा है, and more importantly, what will be the consequences of this? We break it down. So always when you study history, focus on why something is happening and what impact will it have on later developments, causes and consequences. Got this point, guys? Everybody with me? Okay. Next, minimal facts. Most of you who have grown up hating history, and I know there are many, have hated history because of a lot of facts that you had to cram up during your 6th, 7th, 8th standards. And you did not like to cram up facts. I'll tell such students two things. Number one, if you understand the flow, जो मैंने यहाँ flow बताया ना, if you understand the flow, then facts are easy to absorb. पहली चीज, हमको स्कूल में ये flow समझाया नहीं जाता, so इस वजह से facts artificially रटने पड़ते थे, and that made it boring. Understand the flow, facts become much more easy. One. And number two, UPSC fortunately does not expect too many facts from us. They expect more of analysis. और जितने facts चाहिए, flow अगर समझ में आ गया, उतने facts तो बड़े आसानी से आपको याद रह जाए. So don't get bothered because of your prejudice against history. Here history, both world history हो, चाहे modern हो या ancient medieval भी हो, it is going to be very different from what you have studied in your school times. Got this point, guys? Okay. I think I missed one thing. Okay. Linking with modern India. World history जब भी हम पढ़ रहे हैं, parallelly you should imagine what is happening in modern India at that point of time. जब फ्रांस में क्रांति आ रही है 1789 onwards, 1789 to 99, भारत में क्या सिचुएशन? भारत में बंगाल के अंदर में ब्रिटिशर्स की गवर्नमेंट बन चुकी है. लॉर्ड कॉर्नवालिस वहां पर में परमानेंट सेटलमेंट एग्जीक्यूट कर रहा है. साउथ में लड़ाइयां चल रही हैं, एंग्लो मैसूर वॉर, टीपू सुल्तान इज फाइटिंग विद लॉर्ड वेलेस्ली. मराठास जो है वो ऑल्दो अभी भी स्ट्रांग है, लेकिन अपने डिक्लाइन वाले फेज की तरफ आगे बढ़ चले हैं. Whenever you are studying history, you should study it in this manner. Okay, you should have a thought on what is happening in different regions of the world at that point of time. Don't study it in silos. ठीक है, साइलो में नहीं प्रिपेयर करना है आपको, पैरेलली कंटेम्परेरी एस्पेक्ट ध्यान में रखना. Got this idea? And everything is interconnected. I'll give you one example here. 1799 के अंदर में टीपू सुल्तान dies. He is killed by the Britishers. Before that, Napoleon and Tipu Sultan were exchanging letters. Tipu Sultan had called Napoleon to India, and Napoleon started out from there. He came to Egypt, and from Egypt he had plans to come to India. Britishers got hold of some of these letters, and they felt that Tipu Sultan is the biggest threat for us here because he is inviting the French. He has designed his army on the French lines, so they feel he should be the first target. So what did Cornwallis and later Wellesley do? They made alliance with Marathas and Nizam and fought against Tipu Sultan. 3 of them together, Tipu Sultan on one side. 3rd and 4th Anglo-Mysore War, they defeat Tipu Sultan first, and then they deal with Marathas after that. Okay, connect हुआ world history के साथ में? ठीक है. एक और quick example, interesting इसलिए आपको बता रहा हूँ. World War II में all of Southeast Asia was occupied by the Japanese, and the Japanese were a Pacific power like USA. Japan had also attacked Pearl Harbor of USA. डुबोई थी ना अमेरिकन शिप्स बहुत सारी वहां पर. ठीक है. So America wanted to defeat the Japanese, but American naval force did not have any base to operate from, क्योंकि सब कुछ तो जापान ने occupy कर लिया है. So Americans were using Indian port of Visakhapatnam, American ships, to fight against the Japanese. American planes were using our airstrips in Arunachal Pradesh to airdrop stuff for the Chinese government, which was besieged by the Japanese from all sides. And that is why American president pressurizes British government to listen to Indian leaders. When Indians were demanding certain freedoms, Americans were pressurizing the British government to accept it. And that is why Cripps mission came to India in 1940s, because of American pressure. You see how world history is integrated? Okay. And as we go along, I'll tell you many such examples, and it's very fascinating. Okay. Third aspect, maps. History cannot be studied without geography. Okay. We have to understand that particular region, the topography, to understand what is happening over there. So whenever I'll show you a lot of maps on the slides also. In my notes also, you'll see a lot of maps, but you also make it a point that you have an atlas on your desk every day. Whenever you find a few minutes, like you are expecting your tiffin to come and you have 5-10 minutes left, just flip through the atlas. Take any random map. Everything will become, everything will help you. Even if you see map of South America, UPSC may ask a question in prelims based on the natural features over there. You never know. Okay? So map reading should be a habit that should be consciously inculcated. Got this point, guys? Now let us see the sources. What sources we are supposed to prepare. First, primary source will be Story of Civilization by Arjun Dev, old NCERT by Arjun Dev. Story of Civilization. Okay. इसमें दो parts हैं. We have to see part 2. Story of Civilization. Okay. After this will be class notes. You will be given class notes. I think some of you might have received, those who have taken a full admission. Class notes will in detail give you content of all of these topics. So don't worry. And only after you have completed all these class notes, pura complete ho gaya, and all my lectures are finished for world history. Only after that, you may, I'm not saying you should, saying you may refer to a standard reference book. It is not compulsory. World history has fewer number of questions, and these questions also can be largely addressed using basic sources. Okay, but if you have interest and you want to add some value, then you may refer to some standard textbooks. उसमें दो options हैं आपके पास में. History of the Modern World by Jain and Mathur. Okay, and second one is Mastering World History by Norman Lowe. Okay, these are standard reference books. But I told you when you can do that. Okay, did you understand the sources again? Check. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Now let me share with you the 9C template. How we should approach topics of history. First C in these 9 C's is, what is it? Can I hear louder, please? Concepts. I want you all to participate. First C is concepts. Now, there are 2 subjects in which every Indian thinks that he is an expert. One is history, and second is economy. Why is that so? दोनों के reasons अलग-अलग हैं. History इसलिए क्योंकि हमको लगता है कि इस subject में क्या है, सिर्फ story तो है. ठीक है, story पता है, मतलब history पता है. और economy इसलिए क्योंकि हर रोज हम उससे affect होते हैं. So we feel we have an understanding of it. Every academic subject has its own share of concepts. If you don't understand those basic concepts, then you cannot understand that subject. And history is the mother of all humanities subjects. So history में भी naturally अपने खुद के concepts होंगे, right? So it is imperative, guys, that we identify those concepts and understand them clearly and thoroughly. So मैंने सवाल पूछा था, what is nationalism? Everybody said that you have heard about nationalism, but one person could give the precise answer. Okay? Now, we have a fair sort of an idea of things, but not the precise idea. Conceptual clarity has a premium in this exam. Without having conceptual clarity, you cannot dream of cracking civil services exam. So we have to pay a lot of attention on this. I recommend to students that you must have a separate notebook, which will be called as concepts book. Okay. Every day, whatever new concepts you come across, have a 200 pages per notebook and just write down the concept and its basic definition. No detail required, only the basic definition. Compile this list. It will pay great dividends later on. History also has its fair share. Patriotism, suna hai aapne? Have you heard of this word patriotism? How many of you have heard patriotism? Deshbhakti. Deshbhakti to suna hai na? Aur Rashtravad bhi suna hai, right? So are they the same or are they different? Nationalism and patriotism. Are they the same or are they different? Same or different? Different hai? Kaise different hai? How is patriotism different from nationalism? Yes. No, this time you are off the track. Okay. क्या difference है? देखिए, patriotism is love for the land where you were born or you live. Okay. Deshbhakti. Nationalism, as he had earlier mentioned, feeling of oneness with a group of people with whom you share something in common. Patriotism with the land, place. Nationalism, people. Okay. We use this interchangeably. Patriotism हमेशा से रहा है, ancient times से. Wherever human beings they are born, they have an attachment for that place. होता है कि नहीं होता है? Have you seen that movie Border? How many of you seen that movie? नहीं देखिए तो 15 अगस्त को कोई भी चैनल लगा लो, you will see that movie. उस मूवी में सुनील शेट्टी का एक सीन है जिसमें उसका इंट्रो वाला सीन है उसका, where he comes in. He is, sleeping on that sand dune. Rajasthan summer temperatures are very high, so he's sleeping on that sand dune. And his junior comes and wakes him up. He says कि यार मुझे बड़ी अच्छी नींद लगी थी, तुमने उठा दिया वगैरह वगैरह. And his junior asks him कि साहब आप ऐसी गर्म रेत पे कैसे सो सकते? फिर सुनील शेट्टी जो है अपना बॉलीवुड डायलॉग्स मारता है कि ये धरती मेरी माँ है एंड ऑल दैट, उसमें मुझे ठंडक महसूस होती है. सो वो जो फीलिंग है ना दोस्तों, पेट्रियोटिज्म, लव फॉर दैट लैंड. Wherever you are born, where you live, you love that place. That's natural. Concept saying patriotism is different from nationalism. Nationalism is a modern concept. Nationalism leads to the idea of nation state. ठीक है? Nation state क्या होता है फिर? अच्छा, state क्या होता है उससे पहले? We heard of this idea of state? What is meant by a state? Sovereign country. Okay. What else? Okay, partially आपने जवाब दिया है उसका. State क्या है? State एक ऐसी political entity है. Note करिएगा इसको. State is a political entity which has following characteristics. क्या characteristics होगी उसकी? उस entity की अपनी territory होती है. Number 1. It has its own territory. Number 2, there are people who live in that territory, population. पहले territory, फिर population. Third is sovereignty, यानी उसके ऊपर में कोई और power नहीं है. Nobody can force it to do something. And number 4, it has a government that is obeyed internally. When these four things meet, that entity is called as a state. ये चार चीजें मिलनी चाहिए, ठीक है? So हमने nation समझा, group of people who have something in common. Nationalism, when those people have feeling of oneness, that is called as nationalism. Then we understood state, a political entity which has four, features, is called as a state. अब इसमें से बनता है concept of nation state. So nation state क्या होगा? जब nation और state perfectly congruent होते हैं तो कहलाता है nation state. Nation मतलब group of people, वो group of people जिस एरिया में रह रहे हैं उसके ऊपर में ही perfectly वो state है. That will be called as a nation state. Empire क्या होता है? Empire is a bigger entity which has many nations inside of it. वहां nation state नहीं है फिर. Nation state कब बनेगा? When there is perfect overlap, nation or state. Got this idea? These are all basic concepts that are relevant for history. Every topic will have its share of concepts. अगर इनको हमने clearly नहीं समझा, बहुत basic और simple होती, लेकिन होता क्या है ना कि जब चीजें simple होती हैं, तो we are less attentive. It's human nature. सचिन तेंदुलकर नाम सुना है? सुना है. So सचिन तेंदुलकर को एक बार इंटरव्यू में पूछा, you have faced the greatest of bowlers of your times. वसीम अकरम को भी खेला है, मैगरा को भी खेला है, शेन बॉर्न को भी धोया है. Which bowler did you find the most difficult to face? सचिन से पूछ रहे हैं. अब लोगों को लगा कि सचिन इनमें से कोई बोलेगा एलन डोनाल्ड, ब्रेट ली वगैरह ऐसा कुछ बोलेगा. सचिन ने जो नाम लिया, everybody was shocked. Sachin said, I found Hansi Cronje to be the most difficult bowler to face. Hansi Cronje was captain of South Africa and he used to bowl medium pace, part timer. मतलब जब मेन बॉलर्स थक गए टेस्ट मैच में, अब थोड़ा उनको रेस्ट देना है, तो इससे 4-5 ओवर करवा लेते. सचिन क्या बोल रहा है? I found him the most difficult to face. क्योंकि क्या होता है, कभी कभी हमको आदत होती है कॉम्प्लिकेशंस को डील करने की, तो जब सिंपल आ जाता है तो वी फाइंड इट डिफिकल्ट. सो वैसे ही इसमें हिस्ट्री के कंसेप्ट्स में ऐसा होता है. वी हैव सम आइडिया, उनको लगता है सिंपल है, पता है, और हम उस पर ध्यान नहीं देते हैं. डोंट मेक दैट मिस्टेक. गिव ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट टू कंसेप्ट्स ऑफ हिस्ट्री. व्हाट इज पॉइंट? पहला सी समझ में आया आप लोगों को? कंसेप्ट्स. सेकंड इज कंडीशंस. whatever happens in history is in the background of certain conditions. Political, social, economic, cultural वगैरह conditions होती हैं. Unless we understand the conditions, we are not able to understand the choices that people make in those conditions. Human beings will always be going through this cycle. We are faced with a set of conditions. In those conditions, we make certain choices. Those choices lead to new situations. Those situations give new conditions. Those conditions lead to new choices. Those choices lead to next situation. Situation to choices. Choices to, again, this cycle will just go on. Got this idea? So to understand the choices that we make, Mahatma Gandhi जो choice करते हैं, क्या choice करते हैं महात्मा गांधी? Mass agitation politics वाली, mass movements वाली politics. ठीक है. उससे पहले क्या होता था? कांग्रेस वाज नॉट कीन ऑन मास पॉलिटिक्स. याद है ना आप लोगों को? ठीक है. गांधी जी उसको ऑल इंडिया स्केल के ऊपर में लेकर के जाते. सो ही हैज मेड अ चॉइस एंड दैट चॉइस इज इन द बैकग्राउंड ऑफ सम कंडीशंस. वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट. गेटिंग दिस? सो दिस इज द सेकंड सी, दैट इज कंडीशंस. व्हेन द अमेरिकन पीपल डिसाइडेड टू रिवोल्ट अगेंस्ट ब्रिटेन, देयर वाज नो प्रेसिडेंट. त्याला काही पायंडा नव्हता. No colony had dared ever to demand independence from their motherland. लेकिन अमेरिकन्स ने वो जिगर धमक दिखाई. क्यों? Because उनकी कुछ unique conditions थी. If we don't understand those conditions, we won't understand why Americans are doing what they're doing. So we have to understand compulsorily the conditions of historical events. Did you get this? So after concepts, the second one is conditions. Third one after that is characters. Characters, उसको हम कहते हैं पात्र. हिस्ट्री इज अ ड्रामा अनफोल्डिंग ऑन द स्टेज ऑफ टाइम। क्या है हिस्ट्री? एक नाटक, एक ड्रामा है जो वक्त के स्टेज के ऊपर में खेला जा रहा है, और इस ड्रामा में हमेशा कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट पात्र होंगे, कैरेक्टर्स होंगे। इन कैरेक्टर्स की चॉइसेस हिस्ट्री के ड्रामा को आगे बढ़ाएगी। नेपोलियन ने कोई चॉइस किया था, उसने कहा था कि पूरा यूरोप मेरे अंडर में होना चाहिए, ठीक है, मैं एक बड़ा एम्पायर बनाऊंगा और उस एम्पायर में मैं अपने तरीके से सिस्टम्स चलाऊंगा। सो ही मेड सम चॉइसेस। वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड द choices that that character has made, because those choices are going to shape the subsequent history. Got this point? This is the third aspect, character. Rani of Jhansi is a character. She says कि doctrine of lapse मुझे मंजूर नहीं है डलहौजी। Okay? We Indian rulers, Hindu rulers, have had the long tradition of adopting legal heirs. हिंदूज के अंदर में जो है, अगर पुत्र संतति नहीं है रूलर को, तो वो दत्तक एडॉप्ट कर सकता है लड़का और उसको अपना उत्तराधिकारी बना सकता है। ये पुरानी हिंदूज व्यवस्था थी। ये अंग्रेज आकर के इसको बंद करने वाले कौन होते? ठीक है, खालसा कर रहे थे ना वो झांसी को। ठीक है, रानी ऑफ झांसी मेड अ चॉइस कि नहीं, मैं अपनी झांसी नहीं दूंगी। कैरेक्टर इन हिस्ट्री, वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दीज कैरेक्टर्स। 3C क्या देखे हमने, बताइए जरा। कॉन्सेप्ट, conditions, characters. You all got this? Fourth, characteristics, vaishishte. Every historical event will have some unique characteristics. You take the 3 movements that Gandhiji led, major movements: non-cooperation, civil disobedience, quit India. 3 major movements, all led by Gandhiji, roughly distance of 10 years each. But you see, every movement is different. गांधी जी है, कांग्रेस ही है, सत्याग्रही है, नॉन वायलेंस है, सब कुछ है, लेकिन फिर भी हर मूवमेंट के अंदर में कुछ यूनिक डिफाइनिंग कैरेक्टरिस्टिक। नॉन कोऑपरेशन के अंदर में इट इज अबाउट वी विल नॉट कोऑपरेट विद द ब्रिटिश। सिविल डिसोबीडियंस, वी आर गोइंग टू एक्टिवली ब्रेक द लॉज। क्विट इंडिया, अब सब कुछ हो गया, करो या मरो वाली स्थिति। लीडरशिप सेम, आइडियोलॉजी सेम, पार्टी सेम, वर्कर सेम, लेकिन फिर भी हर मूवमेंट की अपनी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है। ठीक है, सो वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दीज यूनिक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ दैट इवेंट। दिस इज द 4th C. Got this point, guys? 5th is chain. चेन या हिंदी मराठी में जिसको हम कहेंगे श्रृंखला। हिस्टोरिकल इवेंट्स इनवेरिएबली विल इन्वॉल्व अ चेन। एक के बाद एक 3, 4, 5 कुछ चीजें हुई हैं। जब हम अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन पढ़ेंगे, आई विल टेल यू अबाउट द 7 years वॉर एंड देन सब्सिक्वेंट ब्रिटिश लॉज दैट वर पास्ड। एक चेन ऑफ इवेंट्स है which changed the opinion of Americans. It made them to take that drastic step. तो वो श्रृंखला, वो चेन भी हमको पता होनी चाहिए। मंगल पांडे ने अपने सीनियर ऑफिसर को जो है वो शूट किया, उसके बाद मंगल पांडे को फांसी हुई। मेरठ में पोस्टेड सिपाहियों ने इसके खिलाफ में विद्रोह किया। बहादुर शाह जफर ने इसकी लीडरशिप एक्सेप्ट की। झांसी, कानपुर, बरेली, इन सब जगह पर में रिवोल्ट फैल गया। ये सब क्या है? चेन ऑफ इवेंट्स। So we should briefly know about some of the most important events that are taking place in that topic. This is what I mean by chain. Did you understand this, guys? Chain. Next comes climax. Climax is the immediate outcome of that topic. Immediately क्या हुआ उसके बाद? रिवोल्ट ऑफ 1857 जहां एंड होता है। अच्छा, मैं कॉन्शियसली मॉडर्न इंडिया से एग्जांपल ज्यादा दे रहा हूं बिकॉज यू कैन रिलेट विद इट। वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री अब तक आपने पढ़ा नहीं है और स्कूल कॉलेज में भी उसका एक्सपोजर नहीं मिलता है। एट द एंड ऑफ रिवोल्ट ऑफ 1857 व्हाट डू वी सी? ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी का रूल इज ओवर। द क्राउन डायरेक्टली टेक्स ओवर। द क्वीन गिव्स अ प्रोक्लेमेशन। ऑल ऑफ दिस इज क्लाइमैक्स, व्हिच मींस इमीडिएट आउटकम। ओके, अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन, ब्रिटिशर्स ने इंडिपेंडेंस दे दिया अमेरिकन को 1783, दैट इज द क्लाइमैक्स। रशियन रेवोल्यूशन, कम्युनिस्ट स्टेट इनॉग्रेट हो गया वहां पर में, इमीडिएट आउटकम। इसको हम कहते हैं क्लाइमैक्स। ठीक है, दिस हैज टू बी डिस्टिंग्विश्ड फ्रॉम consequence. Consequence is long-term effect of that particular historical event. Because of revolt of 1857, over the course of next 30 years, British policies will be different. Immediately तो ईस्ट इंडिया का रूल खत्म हो गया, कंपनी का रूल खत्म हुआ. लॉन्ग टर्म लेकिन इंप्लीकेशंस बहुत डिफरेंट. डिवाइड एंड रूल पॉलिसी आ गई, ठीक है, पहले भी थी लेकिन अब ज्यादा इंटेंसली है, ठीक है. आर्मी में दे मेड मेनी चेंजेस. अर्लियर देयर यूज्ड टू बी अ लॉट ऑफ इंडियंस सोल्जर्स. नाउ दे चेंज द रेशियो 1:3. हर 3 सोल्जर्स के ऊपर में एक गोरा सोल्जर होगा ही होगा, ठीक है. दे केम विद द कंसेप्ट ऑफ मार्शल रेसेस. सिख, पठान, पंजाबी, गुरखा, ये मार्शल रेसेस है. मतलब ये लोग लॉयल रहते हैं अपने मालिक से. ये पॉलिटिकल नहीं होते बंगालियों की तरह, अवधियों की तरह. रिवोल्ट किसने किया था? पांडे, शुक्लास, अवध के लोग, अवध की जो आर्मी थी उन्होंने किया था ना. ये ज्यादा पॉलिटिकली कॉन्शियस है, मतलब. तो हमको ऐसे लोग नहीं चाहिए आर्मी में. वी वांट मार्शल रेसेस. व्हाट आर दीज? दीज आर लॉन्ग टर्म कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस. गॉट द आइडिया? सो किसी भी हिस्टोरिकल टॉपिक को पढ़ते हुए इमीडिएट आउटकम और लॉन्ग टर्म कॉन्सिक्वेंस, इनको अलग अलग हमको देखना चाहिए. Got the point here? Now tell me all the C's that we have seen thus far. Concepts, conditions, characters, characteristics, chain, climax, consequence. सभी C समझ में आए आप लोग के? Next is contemporary aspect. Something that I mentioned to you a few minutes ago. While studying history of a particular event in a point of time, you must not lose sight of what is happening in that time in other places. ठीक है. जब फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन हो रहा है उस वक्त में यूरोप के और दूसरे हिस्सों में क्या चल रहा है. जब रशियन रेवोल्यूशन हो रहा है तब उस वक्त यूरोप के वेस्टर्न पार्ट में क्या हो रहा है, भारत में क्या हो रहा है. देखिए इत्तेफाक नहीं है दोस्तों, इट्स नॉट अ कोइंसिडेंस. रशिया में रेवोल्यूशन हुआ 1917 में सक्सेसफुली, एंड 1921 within a span of 4 years Communist Party of India was created. वहां कम्युनिस्ट रेवोल्यूशन सक्सेसफुल, 1921 के अंदर में सीपीआई बन रहा है. कनेक्टेड है कि नहीं ये चीजें? उन्होंने वहां पर में 5-year प्लान्स इंप्लीमेंट किए, एंड देयर फर्स्ट 2 5-year प्लान्स यूएसएसआर के, they were a massive success. Every single target was met and superseded. In fact, 1938 में they started planning in 1928. 1938 में अभी हमको इंडिपेंडेंस भी नहीं मिला है. इंडिया क्रिएट्स इट्स ओन प्लानिंग कमिटी. Our nationalist leaders created a planning committee for India. Can you see the correlation? ठीक है. So this is the contemporary aspect. While studying about one event, we must not lose sight of other places in that time. Last aspect is comparison. UPSC will ask you a lot of questions based on comparison. Comparing two different events. I'll show you a lot of examples as we go along. Comparing. SARC या BIMSTEC पर इस बार क्वेश्चन पूछा हुआ था. कैसा क्वेश्चन पूछा? Are BIMSTEC and SARC parallel organization? IR का क्वेश्चन है, ये बता रहा हूं. Are BIMSTEC and SARC parallel organization? Comparative क्वेश्चन दिख रहा है आपको, ठीक है. इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन में क्वेश्चन पूछा था, टू कंपेयर ब्रिटेन ड्यूरिंग इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन विद इंडिया टुडे. कंपैरिजन. सो wherever you feel that there are similar kind of developments taking place, we must always try to compare and contrast the two. Getting this point? Okay. These are the 9 C's. I'll give you many examples as we go along. 9 C's समझ में आए आप लोगों को? Yes. Climax. Climax is the immediate outcome. उस event के end में क्या हुआ? That is the climax. Consequence is long-term effect of that event. I told you ना 1857 का revolt जब खत्म होता है, immediate क्या हुआ? ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी का रूल ब्रिटिशर्स ने खत्म कर दिया, ठीक है. They came out with a new proclamation. गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट पास हुआ 1858 का. काउंसिल एक्ट 1861 पास हुआ. ये सब क्या है? क्लाइमैक्स. और लॉन्ग टर्म जो 1857 ने इंपैक्ट किया ब्रिटिश पॉलिसीज को, दैट इज कॉन्सिक्वेंस. सो इमीडिएट इज क्लाइमैक्स एंड लॉन्ग टर्म इज कॉन्सिक्वेंस. गॉट द पॉइंट नाउ? ठीक है. चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं and let us see the first topic. This was the preliminary discussion regarding world history. हमने syllabus देखा, हमने intricacies देखी, sources देखा, template देखा approach करने का. अब हम actual topic से start, which is industrial revolution. Thus far UPSC has asked 2 questions on this topic. तो ये questions देख के हम चलते हैं आगे. See this question here. Why did industrial revolution first occur in England? Discuss the quality of life of people there during industrialization. How does it compare with that in India at present? 3 parts of the question. 12.5 marks के लिए था ये. 3 parts address करना है. अब देखिए आपको 10 अभी तो 12.5 का सिस्टम नहीं है. Now you have 10 and 15 marker. 10 marker question के लिए you have 2 pages, मतलब 2 sides. और 15 marker के लिए you have 3. 10 marker में 150 words typically and 15 markers के अंदर में 250 words. ये आपसे expected होता है. अब ये 10 marker अगर हम इसको पकड़ते हैं तो इसमें 3 parts हैं. 150 words को भी आप 3 में divide कीजिए और उतना ही सिर्फ आपको content लिखने का scope है. Okay, so there is very little time and space, words limit also to reproduce the content. Madam, is it very cold there? It should be this AC room. Just pass on the remote. Or if you want, you could sit some other place. Now read the question and tell me which C can you see there out of our 9 C's. पहला part पढ़िए. Why did the industrial revolution first occur in England? कौन सा C आया इधर? Conditions. All agree with this? ठीक है? अब second देखिए. Discuss the quality of life of people there during industrialization. कौन सा C बोल सकते हैं? बोल सकते हैं? अब ये देखिए. How does it compare with that in India at present? अब समझ में आ रहा है 9C का इंपॉर्टेंस. ये नेक्स्ट टॉपिक देखिए. Latecomer industrial revolution in Japan involved certain factors that were markedly different from what West had experienced. कौन सा सी बनेगा यहाँ? जापान और वेस्ट कंपैरिजन है. जापान में जो आया है वो डिफरेंट है एज कंपेयर टू व्हाट वेस्ट हैड एक्सपीरियंस्ड. सो इज इट कंपैरिजन? कैन यू सी हाउ 9 C's प्ले आउट हियर इन हिस्ट्री? कोई भी क्वेश्चन उठा के देख लो, ये 9 C's के बाहर नहीं जाएगा. सो इफ यू हैव अप्रोच्ड अ टॉपिक thoroughly from 9C एंगल तो उसके बाहर कुछ नहीं जा सकता. ठीक है, चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. How will we see this topic? We will first understand what is meant by industrial revolution. We will see why it takes place in England first. This पे direct question पूछा है. We'll see how it will spread to other parts of the world. We will see its consequences and we'll see its impact on colonialism and imperialism. This is how we are going to see this topic. Begin with the end in mind. Okay. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Let us first define the concept. What is meant by industrial revolution? Industrial revolution, guys, at the core is basically a new system of production. अगर आपको एक फ्रेज में कहने को कहा जाए क्या है औद्योगिक क्रांति, ये एक नया तंत्र है, नई प्रणाली है प्रोडक्शन की. अब सवाल फिर पैदा होता है कि इसमें नया क्या है? What is new in this new system? अब हम उसका जवाब देंगे. ठीक है. In this new system, capital, भांडवल, machine tools, human labor, raw material are brought together in a single place called as factory. सभी लोग, सभी चीजें एक ही जगह पर में, जिसको हम कहते हैं factory. This factory is connected with power. Using all of this, goods are produced on a mass scale in less टाइम, मास प्रोडक्शन लेस टाइम। पहले इमेजिन कीजिए जब टेलर जो है वो शर्ट सिएगा, उसको एक शर्ट सीने में कितना वक्त लग जाएगा, ठीक है। उससे पहले वीवर ने जो है वो कपड़ा बुना होगा, उससे पहले किसी ने कॉटन में से सीड्स निकाले होंगे, उसमें से फिर यान बनाया होगा, यान से फिर कपड़ा बनेगा, कपड़े से फिर शर्ट बनेगा। ऑल ऑफ दिस इज वेरी टाइम कंज्यूमिंग. All of that can be done very, very fast on machines. So what is industrial revolution? A new system of production in which capital, machine tools, I want to hear you guys. Machine tools, human labor, raw material brought in one place called as factory, connected with power, okay, for mass production in less time. Got this idea? This is industrial revolution. देखिए पहले जब हम कोई चीज प्रोड्यूस करते थे तो उसके अंदर में हम ह्यूमन बीइंग्स का फिजिकल पावर या फिर हम एनिमल पावर यूज करते हैं, इसको ड्राउट कहते हैं, DRAUGST. अब फैक्ट्रीज के अंदर में क्या होने लगा, पहले वाटर जनरेटेड पावर, फिर उसके बाद में स्टीम जनरेटेड, और फिर उसके बाद में इलेक्ट्रिसिटी. सो फैक्ट्रीज आर कनेक्टेड विद पावर इन दैट सेंस. This is not human or animal power that is being used. Got the idea? This revolution first starts in England and then it spreads to other parts of the world. पहले यूरोप के दूसरे हिस्सों में, फिर अमेरिका, जापान, and then ultimately to colonies also. भारत में भी थोड़ा बहुत हुआ ना, मुंबई के अंदर में गिरणी मिल्स ब्रिटिशर्स के टाइम से थी, सूरत में थी, कैलकाटा में थी, जमशेदपुर में भी बनी. So some places in colonies also experienced industrial revolution. Ultimately, this industrial revolution led to a demand for raw materials and markets. And therefore, countries which were industrialized, they necessarily went out and tried to occupy distant lands in Asia, Africa, Latin America, so that they would have access to raw material and markets for their finished goods. This is at the core the idea of industrial revolution. Did you understand this, guys? Everybody? Okay. आगे बढ़ते. Now, just one second. To understand how this industrial revolution takes place, we have to understand how Europe geared up to get industrialized. भारत में नहीं हुआ ये, चाइना में नहीं हुआ. You know, 1707, this is a very landmark year in history of India. क्या हुआ था पता है इस साल? 1707, Aurangzeb dies. So Mughals will enter into the later Mughal wala phase. Post Aurangzeb, Mughals will not be a strong state. Decline में वो चले जाएंगे, ठीक है. When this takes place, 1707, in that year, share of international trade was 24%. कितना है? 1/4 of world trade is with India. China is 10%. Okay. This is how important India was to the world. India से बनने वाला सिल्क, मसलिन, इंडिया के स्पाइसेस, आइवरी, बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट्स इंडिया के ट्रेमेंडस डिमांड में थे वर्ल्ड में. तभी तो इतना शेयर है ना, लोग चाहते हैं हमारे प्रोडक्ट्स. लेकिन इसके बावजूद वो क्रांति यहाँ नहीं हुई, वो यूरोप में हुई. तो कुछ तो वजह होंगी, कंडीशंस. So what led Europe in that direction of industrial revolution? We have to understand that. और वो समझने के लिए यूरोप का थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड हमको समझना पड़ेगा, ठीक है. सो मैं अब आपको यूरोप के थोड़े से बैकग्राउंड से लेकर के आना. Some of the ideas and concepts over here are going to be important later. इसलिए मैं यहां पर मैं उसको थोड़ा सा वहां पर भी बताऊंगा फिर से, लेकिन आज भी टच करके जा. आपने वो रिन की ऐड देखी, रिन टिकिया. अक्सर उसके अंदर में एक थीम होती है, somebody is walking in a white साड़ी और white dress, और बीच में वो रिन की टिकिया जाती है, झटक, and you see the difference before and after. Yeah, all these weight reduction products, they'll always show you before and after. Because unless you can have that contrast, you cannot understand what is the change that has taken place. You agree with this? So when we will talk about modern and industrialized Europe, we have to understand Europe before that also to really appreciate कि क्या बदला है. समझ में बात आपकी? इसलिए थोड़ा सा यूरोप का हम बैकग्राउंड हिस्ट्री देख करके आगे बढ़े. This over here, guys, is the map of Europe during ancient times, when Europe was being ruled basically by the Roman Empire. This is the map from 717 AD. This is Roman Empire. Can you see how massive it was? Spain, Portugal, France, Germany, greater part of UK, Italy, सारा East Europe, ये टर्की एशिया माइनर, यहाँ पर सेंट्रल एशिया का बहुत सारा पार्ट, यहाँ पर में आप आ जाते हैं तो पूरा आज का सीरिया, इसराइल, पैलेस्टाइन, इजिप्ट का फर्टाइल वाला पार्ट, पूरा इजिप्ट नहीं है लेकिन फर्टाइल वाला पार्ट, एंड सारा नॉर्थ अफ्रीका का कोस्ट, ये सारा एरिया ऑक्यूपाइड है by this one single empire called as Roman Empire. And this empire was able to mobilize the resources of such a huge empire. You can imagine how many different type of people might have lived here. Religions, thoughts, cultures, resources. ये सारी चीजें mobilize करके Roman Empire जो है एक समृद्ध empire बना. And consequently, you see that Europeans during this phase were very advanced. The Romans, they had built a road and network from one corner to the other. You could travel and do trade across different parts of the empire. Law and order provide kiya. Badi buildings banai. Romans used to have big stadiums called as colosseums. और इन colosseums के अंदर में matches होती थी. FIFA World Cup चल रहा है. अब आप देखेंगे आज के स्टेडियम में, आप अच्छे स्टेडियम में कहीं बैठते हैं तो आपको पूरा अरीना नीचे दिखता है. Your view is never obstructed. The angle is designed in such a manner. Seating angle. Roman colosseums used to have 50 to 70,000 people seated in an amphitheater style with matches going on in the arena, and everybody's view was clear. So you can imagine the level of advancement in mathematics, in architecture to build those kind of stadiums. Also, you need those sort of resources. Resources भी चाहिए ना बनाने के लिए. ताजमहल शाहजहां ने क्यों बनवाया? Why only Shahjahan could have built the Taj Mahal? Because that is the high noon of Mughal Empire. He had the resources to build that. Of course, he loved his wife. I don't doubt that. But every husband loves his wife. Can every husband build a Taj Mahal for his wife? No, he can't. You need the resources of Mughal Empire at its peak to do that. Romans had that. They had advancements in terms of law, in many other fields, astronomy, you name it. And they were having a lot of developments there. But this will start to change. Okay? Everything finally comes to an end around 400 AD के आसपास. Around 400 AD, this empire will first split into two parts. ये सारा important है discussion. आगे इसके references आने वाले हैं. So please be very attentive. So we have a massive Roman Empire in Europe. We understood that. It is very advanced for its age, economically, intellectually speaking. This Roman Empire will split up into two parts around 400 AD. This western part will be called as the Western Roman Empire, and this eastern part will be called as the Eastern Roman Empire. Did you understand this, guys? क्यों हुआ ये? क्योंकि यहाँ ऊपर वाला जो एरिया था, यहाँ पर में कुछ जंगली ट्राइब्स रहती थी. Jungli by Romans ka definition. These Romans wanted to expand in these lands, always imperialist, okay? And they were fighting with these people. Now these people, they kept on fighting constantly, and in those wars, Romans became economically weak. और इस weakness के चलते ultimately वो divide हो गए into two parts, Western and Eastern Roman Empire. Did you understand this? Later on, that is after 400 AD, this Western Roman Empire will get fractured into smaller kingdoms further. Okay. The Eastern Roman Empire, on the other hand, will remain, I mean, it will shrink, but it will remain intact. It will not break up. एरिया तो कम होगा, लेकिन ईस्टर्न रोमन एम्पायर बचा रहेगा. ठीक है, कब तक बचा रहेगा? टिल 1453. ये आगे आएगा रेफरेंस, अभी मैं सिर्फ मार्क कर रहा हूं आपके. तो क्या देखा हमने? लेट मी समराइज इट. This massive and great Roman Empire got split into two parts, Western and Eastern, in 400 AD. After that, the Western Roman Empire slowly will fracture into smaller kingdoms. Eastern Roman Empire, on the other hand, will shrink in area, but it will still exist as Eastern Roman Empire. It will not fracture. और इस ईस्टर्न रोमन एम्पायर का कैपिटल था ये शहर कॉन्स्टेंटिनोपल, जो आज तुर्की का इस्तांबुल है. ठीक है, डिड यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस मच एवरीबॉडी? वेरी गुड. चलिए, नाउ वी विल सी व्हाट काइंड ऑफ यूरोप वी सी पोस्ट द रोमन एम्पायर. रोमन एम्पायर के डिसइंटीग्रेशन के बाद का जो पीरियड है, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज मिडिवल एज ऑफ यूरोप. Medieval age of Europe. In this medieval age, Europe comes to accept Christianity. एक थोड़ा सा चीज यहां पर रेलेवेंट नहीं है, लेकिन आपके ब्रॉडर अंडरस्टैंडिंग के लिए आपको सिर्फ यहां बता दूं. This is the place called as Jerusalem. Around this area, basically, Christ was born. ठीक है, Jesus Christ. And he gives his message, whatever he wants to preach, he gives his message over here. During his lifetime, he had very few but very committed followers. He was from the Jewish community living in this area of Israel, the Jews. But the empire was under the Romans. You remember that? Romans are ruling over here. And Jesus was like a reformer in the Jewish community. He talked about the corrupt and immoral practices of their people. So the Jews complained to the Romans, telling them that Jesus is spreading sedition. ये आपके खिलाफ में यहाँ बगावत साजिश कर रहा है. The Romans are rulers, remember that? So the Romans got him crucified. They killed him. ठीक है? After his death also, his close followers continued to practice the thoughts that he had given for next 3 centuries. Till that time, Christianity was limited to only a handful number of people. Okay? In fact, those who followed Christianity, they were persecuted. उनकी प्रताड़ना होती थी by the Jews and Romans. Around 300 AD, इस massive Roman Empire का emperor Constantine, इसको पता चलता है Christianity के बारे में. And he likes the philosophy about that religion. He accepts Christianity around 300 AD. समझ में आ रही बात आप लोग को? Yes, no, can't say. ये सारा आगे ये रेलेवेंस आएगा इस चीज. जैसे हमारे यहाँ पर में अशोक द ग्रेट ने बुद्धिज्म एक्सेप्ट किया था, and after that Buddhism naturally got support. Many more people accepted because the emperor had accepted that religion. He was taking active steps for the spread of Buddhism. So when Constantine accepted Christianity, then we see that Europe will become Christianized. Got this idea? ठीक है. So medieval age में जब हम enter करते हैं यूरोप के, यूरोप is Christian, और इस Christianity का, इस धर्म का जो चर्च है, उसका जो सबसे important political institution है, that institution has a great impact on the life of common Europeans. धर्म सत्ता, religious power, becomes extremely potent in Europe during medieval times. Did you get this idea? ठीक है. Now, जब भी धर्म सत्ता प्रबल होती है, जब वो strong होती है, तो जो political सत्ता है वो कमजोर होती है. Because people value religion above everything else. So Europe, Western Europe especially, will be ruled by smaller and weaker kings. पहले क्या था? सिंगल रोमन एम्पायर रूल्ड बाय अ वेरी पावरफुल एम्परर. वो जा चुका है. क्रिश्चियनिटी आ गई है. क्रिश्चियनिटी की वजह से चर्च हैज बिकम अ वेरी पावरफुल इंस्टीट्यूशन एंड द किंग्स हैव बिकम weak. Why? Because religious institution is very powerful. So kings are weak. Moreover, they have smaller kingdoms. We have noted that. These kings were further dependent on their feudal lords. Okay. So you have Pope सबसे ऊपर में, church का head. Pope से नीचे you have king, and below the king you have the feudal lords. मराठी में जिसको हम कहते हैं सामंत, हिंदी मराठी में सामंतशाही कहते हैं. Who were these feudal lords? Feudal lords कौन थे? These were authorities appointed by the king to collect taxes from the people. Feudalism is a very important concept, guys. पूरी दुनिया में medieval age जहां जहां भी माना जाता है, उस एज की सबसे पहली कैरेक्टरिस्टिक होती है feudalism. Feudalism अगर है तो हम कहेंगे कि medieval age आ गया. These feudal lords were given the task of collecting taxes from the people on behalf of the state. पहले तो they were appointed by the king not on hereditary basis. Say imagine कीजिए, एक simple मिसाल देता हूं so that you can relate with it easy. पुणे जिले का एक राजा है. पुणे जिले में 14-15 तालुकाज हैं. अब वो राजा क्या करता है, हर तालुका पर अपना एक फ्यूडल लॉर्ड अपॉइंट करता है और उससे कहता है कि भाई हवेली तालुका का फ्यूडल लॉर्ड तू है. हवेली तालुका में जितने किसान किसानी कर रहे हैं उनके पास से रेवेन्यू कलेक्ट करना है तुम्हें, एंड कीप अ सर्टेन शेयर फॉर योरसेल्फ एंड गिव द रेस्ट टू द स्टेट. ठीक है. अब वो फ्यूडल लॉर्ड कहता है कि मुझे अगर टैक्स कलेक्ट करना है, आई नीड सम पावर विद मी. ठीक है. लोग ऐसे ही तो पैसा नहीं देते हैं ना. सो ही इज गिवन एन आर्मी ऑल्सो फॉर सपोर्ट. ही कैन मेंटेन एन आर्मी. राजा उससे कहता है कि ठीक है, तू सोल्जर्स रिक्रूट कर ले, जो भी टैक्स का पैसा आ रहा है उसमें से वो सोल्जर्स की सैलरी भी पे होगी, तेरा पर्सनल शेयर भी होगा, एंड रिमेनिंग अमाउंट विल बी गिवन टू द स्टेट. दैट इज पॉइंट. ठीक है. नाउ ही इज ऑल्सो गिवन द एडिशनल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ मेंटेनिंग लॉ एंड ऑर्डर इन दैट एरिया. अगर टैक्स कलेक्ट करना है तो पीस होना चाहिए ना पहले. अगर बगावतें हो रही हैं, जंग हो रही है, रिबेलियंस हो रहे हैं, तो टैक्स कलेक्ट नहीं हो पाएगा. सो ही इज सपोज्ड टू यूज दैट आर्मी टू मेंटेन लॉ एंड ऑर्डर इन दैट एरिया. सर मेरा उसका रोल कैसे एनहांस हो रहा है? पहले जस्ट टैक्स कलेक्टर, देन गिवन एन आर्मी, further given responsibility for law and order also, okay? And eventually slowly this institution became hereditary also. feudal lord का बेटा ही next feudal lord बनेगा. इस तरीके से सिस्टम बनी. Because of this the king became dependent on the feudal lord. टैक्स भी वही ला रहा है, आर्मी भी उसके अंडर में है. ठीक है. लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की जिम्मेदारी भी उसकी है. फर्दरमोर वो हेरिडिटरी भी है. Okay, so the king becomes more and more weak in Western Europe, and the feudal lords become strong. Okay, these feudal lords built what were called as castles. आपने movies में देखा होगा, मराठी में जिसको कहते हैं ना गढ़ी, छोटा सा किला. They built these castles in hilly areas to protect themselves against any attack by their own king. If the king feels that this feudal lord is not obeying me, then he will have to go and fight a war with him, क्योंकि उसके पास भी आर्मी है. ठीक है. लेकिन वो क्या करता था, अपनी सारी आर्मी लेकर के he used to live in a castle. That castle was locked up from inside with food, grain, water stocked up for next several months. So the king was left outside sieging that castle, impossible to penetrate and defeat the feudal lords. The feudal lord is having a मजानी life inside. खाना पीना सब ऐश मजा उसका चल रहा है, और राजा बेचारा जो है बाहर जो है वो siege ले आउट कर रहा है. So पूरे medieval times के अंदर में इस तरीके से ये feudal lords जो है ये बहुत strong होते हैं और kings कमजोर होने लगते हैं. This is a defining characteristic of medieval Europe. Did you understand this? Yes, no, can't say? Okay. Now, during Roman times, I told you also in the discussion that there was an elaborate network of roads and a lot of transport and communication was taking place. Trade and commerce was flourishing. एक region के resources दूसरे region तक ले जाए जाते थे. Because of this, trade was doing very well. और ट्रेड जब होता है तो इकोनॉमी का अर्बनाइजेशन होता है. अर्बनाइजेशन यानी सिटीज का डेवलपमेंट कब होगा दोस्तों? जब सिटी में रहने वाले लोग सरप्लस एग्रीकल्चर से खुद को फीड कर सकते हैं एंड दे कैन डू नॉन एग्रीकल्चरल वर्क ओवर देयर टू अर्न अ लिविंग. अब सिटी में किस टाइप के काम होंगे? नेचुरली ट्रेड के ऊपर में बेस्ड ही होंगे. वहां ट्रेडर्स होंगे, मर्चेंट्स होंगे, अकाउंटेंट्स होंगे, लॉयर्स होंगे, क्लर्क्स होंगे, हमाल होंगे. ये सारे लोग शहर में रहेंगे. दे डोंट प्रोड्यूस फूड, दे डू दिस टर्शियरी एक्टिविटी. ठीक है. सो फॉर दिस टाइप ऑफ सिस्टम टू सर्वाइव यू नीड ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स. मिडिवल टाइम्स में फ्यूडल लॉर्ड्स के एरियाज डिवाइडेड थे एंड ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स स्टार्टेड टू सफर बिकॉज ऑफ दिस. एवरी फ्यूडल लॉर्ड, जैसे ये एक राजा की टेरिटरी है and this is divided into areas of feudal lords. Whenever trade used to pass through their territories, at the borders they used to apply octroi tax. Zakat bharavi lage tumhara. So traders found it difficult to pay this octroi at every fatak, at every gate of the next feudal lord. Goods became expensive. Market पे फिर goods की demand नहीं रही, so trade and commerce started to suffer. मोरओवर ये जो फ्यूडल लॉर्ड्स थे ये अपनी गढ़ियों में रहते थे. ये गढ़ियां कहाँ थी? शहरों में थी क्या? नो, दे वर देयर इन हिली टेरेन्स, डिफिकल्ट टेरेन्स, एंड दे प्रिफर्ड टू लिव क्लोजर टू द रूरल एरिया. आपने पुरानी हिंदी फिल्में देखी है ना, 70s और 80s की? उसमें अमरीश पुरी अक्सर हमारे फिल्मों के ठाकुर साहब होते थे. ठाकुर साहब का जो है वो एक बड़ा सा मैंशन, बड़ा सा गढ़ी, उसकी किला होता था. देखा है कि नहीं आप लोगों ने? और घोड़े पर बैठ करके गांव में घूमते रहते. हरिया कहीं मिल जाए तो उसको मारपीट कर देते. सेम काइंड ऑफ सोसाइटी. द फ्यूडल लॉर्ड resided in rural areas because that is where he is going to draw the revenue from. He can't live in the city and expect compliance of taxes. He has to be there on the field. So the elite of the society, the feudal lords, they were ruralized. ग्रामीणीकरण त्यांचं झालेलं होतं. And because they were ruralized, city के अंदर में फिर अब कोई patrons नहीं बचे थे. सिटी में दूसरे लोगों को काम जब मिलता है, कब मिलता है? जब एलिट्स उनको जॉब्स देते हैं. अब एलिट ही अगर गांव चला गया तो सिटी में जॉब्स मिलेगी क्या? सो अर्बनाइजेशन डिक्लाइन होने लगता है. 20 आइडिया. सो मिडिवल यूरोप is a ruralized kind of a society and economy. Are you understanding? Are you able to relate with this? Yes, no, can't say? Okay. So ruralized economy. Agriculture during this period, सारा रेवेन्यू एग्रीकल्चर से ही आ रहा है. ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स तो बहुत कम बचा है, लेकिन एग्रीकल्चर भी बैकवर्ड होता चला जाता है धीरे धीरे. एग्रीकल्चर कब डेवलप होगा? जब साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप होगी, जब कुछ नए आइडियाज आएंगे, कुछ प्रयोग होंगे, कुछ एक्सपेरिमेंट्स होंगे. लेकिन फ्यूडल टाइप ऑफ सोसाइटी के अंदर में जहां कोई सेंट्रलाइज्ड स्ट्रक्चर नहीं है, वहां पर में ऐसे कोई एक्सपेरिमेंट्स नहीं हो सकते. वहां पर इंफॉर्मेशन डिसेमिनेशन नहीं हो सकता. वहां पर में नए डेवलपमेंट्स नहीं की जा सकती. इसलिए स्लोली स्टेडीली एग्रीकल्चर ऑल्सो बिकम्स बैकवर्ड. टोटल डीमोनेटाइजेशन ऑफ द इकोनॉमी. महाराष्ट्र के लोग जो है वो बलूतेदारी व्यवस्था के बारे में जानते हैं. हैव यू हर्ड ऑफ बलूतास? हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू हर्ड ऑफ बलूता सिस्टम? ओके, वेरी फ्यू. इन दिस पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया वी हैड अ सिस्टम कॉल्ड एज बलूतेदारी, in which there used to be 12 castes. Okay, 12 baluta bolte the. These 12 balutas or 12 castes used to do their traditional occupation, and in return of that they were not given money. Instead they were given share in whatever is being produced in the village. ठीक है, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल कोई नाई है, बार्बर, वो गांव के सभी लोगों के बाल काटेगा, लेकिन उसको पैसा नहीं मिलेगा उसके अगेंस्ट में. उसको जो भी गांव का एग्रीकल्चर का उत्पन्न है, जो भी उसका प्रोडक्शन है, उसमें शेयर मिलेगा. गांव में कुंभार है, वो मटके बनाएगा और वो मटके जो है वो लोगों को देगा. इन अगेंस्ट ऑफ दैट नो मनी, अगेन शेयर इन प्रोडक्शन. सो दिस वाज अ मीन्स ऑफ एक्सचेंज डिवाइज्ड during medieval times in this part of India. That is called as balutedari system. Got the point? So economy में monetary role जो है वो minimal था. ठीक है? Same thing happens over here also in Europe in medieval times. The feudal lord is not getting money directly. What is he getting? He is getting share in that agriculture. So he has ample amount of food. He has a lot of human beings to support him. गांव में किसी से भी ठाकुर साहब जो काम करवा सकते थे, भारत में बेगार सिस्टम कहते थे उसको. अगर फ्यूडल लॉर्ड ने, ठाकुर साहब ने कहा कि आपको आकर के हवेली पे काम करना है, वो फिल्मों में डायलॉग भी सुनते थे ना, आप आओ हवेली पर या वाड्यावरती. सो ये जो डायलॉग था, ये वो फ्यूडल लॉर्ड्स का वो टिपिकल एक्सट्रैक्शन था फ्रॉम द कॉमन पीपल. गॉट दिस आइडिया? इसकी वजह से पैसे की जरूरत नहीं रही. ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स वैसे भी नहीं हो रहा है. ठीक है, सारा जो मीन्स ऑफ एक्सचेंज है वो इसके बार्टर सिस्टम के ऊपर में चल रहा है. सो डीमोनेटाइजेशन ऑफ इकोनॉमी होने लगता है. और जब डीमोनेटाइजेशन होगा तो नेचुरली इकोनॉमी आगे नहीं बढ़ेगी, वो स्टैग्नेट हो जाएगी. सो रोम which was a trading hub, which was a advanced urban kind of an empire, उसका complete transformation into this type of feudal medieval Europe हमको देखने मिलता है. समझ में आ रहा चेंज क्या हो रहा है आप लोगों को? यस नो काइंड से? ओके. इस एग्रीकल्चर की एक और प्रैक्टिस थी जिसके बारे में हमको पता होना चाहिए, which is called as serfdom. Serfdom. Now, what was this practice of serfdom? Serfdom was a practice in which people were hereditarily tied to a land. जमीन से बंधे हुए होते थे लोग, फिजिकल रस्सी से नहीं. सर्फ्स को उस जमीन के ऊपर ही जमीन के मालिक की सेवा करनी होती थी. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल मेरी जमीन है और उस पर 100 सर्फ्स जो है वो बंधे हुए हैं. अब इनका काम है कि उस जमीन के ऊपर में वो मेरे लिए काम करें उस जमीन पर. ठीक है, दे आर नॉट ऑब्लिगेटेड टू मी, दे आर ऑब्लिगेटेड टू द लैंड. ठीक है, their generations will continue to do physical labor on that land only. वो वहां से कहीं नहीं जा सकते. This is different from slavery. Slavery और serfdom अलग है. Slavery में that slave is tied to the owner. Owner शहर बदल दिया तो slave उसके साथ में जाएगा. Owner चाहे तो slave को बेच सकता है. Serfdom में ऐसा नहीं होता. Serfdom में क्या होता है? हाँ, मैंने अपनी जमीन बेच दी तो वो लोग उस नए व्यक्ति के लिए काम करेंगे लेकिन उसी जमीन पर. ठीक है, आई कांट सेल द सर्फ. सर मेरी बात आपकी? सो दीज आर कॉल्ड एज सर्फ्स, या भारत के अंदर में जो है उसको बंधुआ मजदूर भी कहते हैं, बॉन्डेड लेबर. गॉट द आइडिया? दिस इज अ बैकवर्ड काइंड ऑफ अ प्रैक्टिस दैट डेवलप्ड इन यूरोप. भारत में देखिए, मैं जस्ट सो दैट यू रिलेट विद इट बेटर. भारत में कई सारे अटैक्स हुए फ्रॉम नॉर्थ वेस्ट, बहुत सारी इन्वेजन्स हुई. अब इन्वेडिंग जो आर्मीज होती थी उनका नंबर कम होता था एज कंपेयर टू लोकल पॉपुलेशन, बट एवरी सिंगल टाइम ऑलमोस्ट वी सी दैट द इन्वेडिंग आर्मीज वर सक्सेसफुल. अब यहां पर तो पॉपुलेशन ज्यादा है, फिर कैसे ये सक्सीड हो रहे हैं? उस जमाने में इट वाज मोर ऑफ नंबर गेम ना, कोई एडवांस वेपन तो थे नहीं कि वेपन्स के बेसिस पे जीत रहा है कोई. स्टिल व्हाई डिड द इन्वेडिंग आर्मीज विन? One major reason was our caste system. In our caste system, only the Kshatriyas were allowed to wield weapons. और Kshatriyas कितने परसेंटेज होंगे पॉपुलेशन के अंदर में? 10 to 15%. Bots about 20%. So 80% of the country's population was not allowed to take up arms. अब इस 80% में कितने जीनियस सोल्जर्स रहे होंगे? अगर उनको मौका मिलता तो वो युद्ध मैदान में अपना हुनर दिखा सकते थे, बट दैट अपॉर्चुनिटी इटसेल्फ वाज डिनाइड. कैन दिस? ठीक है, सो वैसे ही यूरोप के अंदर में भी दिस सर्फडम वाली प्रैक्टिस इज डिनाइंग अपॉर्चुनिटी फॉर पीपल. देयर टैलेंट्स आर बीइंग वेस्टेड इन दिस प्रोसेस. कैन यू कोरिलेट नाउ? दिस इज द टाइप ऑफ मिडिवल यूरोप दैट वी सी. इसलिए मिडिवल यूरोप को डार्क एजेस कहा जाता है. समझ में बात आपकी? अब ये मिडिवल यूरोप क्यों और कैसे ट्रांसफॉर्म हुआ, ये आगे की इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी है, ये हम नेक्स्ट लेक्चर में देखेंगे. ठीक है, I'll call it a day here today, guys. If you have any doubts, queries, feel free to ask them, or you can also wait back and personally also, if you want to ask, you can ask. Not just about world history, but anything in general regarding your preparation. Okay. Thank you so much.